7 Asian countries falling apart in 2026, and one of them will completely shock you. 7 Asian countries are crumbling in 2026. Not slowly. Not quietly. Right now, in real time, millions of people across Asia are rationing fuel, sitting in darkness, and watching everything they built fall apart around them. Energy blackouts. Fuel queues stretching for miles. Schools shut down. Economies cracking open under the weight of war, debt, and decisions nobody wants to reverse. And one country on this list is going to stop you completely. Not because it is the worst. Not because it is at war. But because of who it is, and what it means for every single person watching this right now. We count down from number 7 all the way to number 1. Do not skip ahead. Do not jump to the end. Because if you miss what happens in the middle of this countdown, number 1 will not hit the way it is supposed to. Stay with us. This is going to be worth every second. Before we get into it, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now. We cover the stories about this region that most channels are too comfortable to tell. You do not want to miss what is coming. Now, let us start the count. Number 7. Sri Lanka. The country that already broke once, and is terrified of breaking again. In 2022, Sri Lanka became the first Indo-Pacific country in decades to default on its entire external debt. Inflation exploded past 70%. Foreign reserves collapsed to nearly zero. The president. Attempt drew 0 bids. Not expensive bids. Not low bids. Nobody was willing to sell. The second attempt secured 1 cargo at $28 per unit, 2.5 times what it cost just weeks before. With 177 million people depending on that electricity to keep garment factories running, hospitals functioning, and schools open, the numbers got brutal fast. Daily diesel supply dropped to 9,000 tons against a national demand of 12,000. Incoming shipments at that ration level were sufficient for just 16 days. Annual fuel costs are now projected to rise by $4.8 billion, a 40% increase from 2025. Bangladesh did not walk into a crisis. It got pulled into one in the space of a single week. And it is still fighting its way back out. If you are finding this valuable, take 5 seconds right now and share this video with one person who needs to understand what is happening in Asia in 2026. It costs you nothing. It might change how they see the world. Now back to the count. Because we are barely halfway through and things are about to get significantly heavier. Number 5. Pakistan. The country running its entire government on emergency mode. Pakistan imports more than 80% of its oil. When the Strait of Hormuz closed, there was no buffer and no backup. In March 2026, Pakistan announced the largest single fuel price hike in its history. Long queues appeared instantly at petrol stations across Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad. And then the government did something that had never been done before in peacetime. It ordered a 4-day workweek for all government employees to save fuel. It closed schools for 2 weeks to conserve energy. It banned all in-person government meetings. It capped weddings at 200 guests with only one main dish allowed. These are not proposals. These are things that actually happened. In Pakistan. In 2026. The national power shortfall hit around 4,500 megawatts during peak evening hours, nearly a quarter of total demand gone. Pakistan's Navy sent oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz under armed military escort. Think about what that image means for a moment. A country sending warships to protect fuel deliveries just to keep the lights on. The structural weaknesses in Pakistan's energy sector existed long before this crisis. The Middle East conflict did not create this problem. It simply stripped away every cushion Pakistan had left to absorb it. Number 4. Myanmar. The country disappearing from the inside. In 2021, Myanmar's military launched a coup. Since then, the country has been at war with itself. And by 2026, the military that started that coup controls less than half of the country it seized. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, the military holds only around 21% of Myanmar's territory. Resistance forces and ethnic armies hold 42%. Over 3 million people have been displaced. The People's Defense Force and its allies have pushed government troops onto the defensive in parts of the Burmese heartland. The economy is in freefall. Public services have collapsed in conflict zones. Schools closed. Hospitals overwhelmed. Electricity unreliable across vast stretches of the country. China has been pressuring key resistance groups to pull back in order to protect its own infrastructure investments inside Myanmar, but not even that has stopped the fighting. Analysts are no longer asking when Myanmar will stabilize. They are now asking whether a country in this condition can recover at all within a single generation. That is the question sitting over Myanmar right now. We are at 3 countries left. And the final 3 are going to hit in a completely different way. Stay with us. Number 3. Thailand. The slowest emergency in Southeast Asia. This one is different. Thailand is not at war. There are no fuel queues. No default. Nuku. And that is exactly what makes it so unsettling. Thailand's GDP growth forecast for 2026 sits at just 1.3 to 1.6%. The World Bank, the IMF, and the OECD all confirm it independently. That is the lowest growth rate of any major ASEAN economy, not by a small margin. Vietnam is growing at 6.3%. The Philippines at 5.3%. Indonesia at 5%. Malaysia between 4 and 5%. Thailand sits alone at the very bottom. This is not a temporary dip. Since the Asian financial crisis of 1997, Thailand's economic growth has been declining for nearly 3 decades. Household debt is at record levels, crushing consumer spending. Public finances are approaching the legal debt ceiling. The services sector remains largely closed to foreign competition. A snap election was held in February 2026, but the incoming government inherited constraints so severe that economists are openly asking whether meaningful reform is even possible within them. Here is the uncomfortable truth about Thailand. When a country is not in crisis but still ranks among the most economically troubled in its own region, that is a different kind of danger. It is the kind that does not make front pages. The kind that just quietly drains a country's potential year after year until one day people look up and wonder what happened. Thailand is not falling apart loudly. It is fading. And fading is sometimes harder to fix than breaking. Number 2. The Philippines. A country defending itself in its own waters. The Philippines has a clear, legitimate legal claim to waters in the South China Sea under international law. In 2016, an international tribunal ruled firmly in Manila's favor, rejecting China's territorial claims as incompatible with the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. China refused to accept the ruling, and the harassment has continued every year since. In 2025 and into 2026, Chinese Coast Guard vessels have physically blocked Filipino fishing boats, aimed fire control radar at Philippine naval ships, and harassed patrol aircraft near Scarborough Shoal. In April 2026, the Philippine National Security Council reported laboratory confirmation of cyanide found near 2nd Thomas Shoal, where a deliberately grounded Philippine naval vessel sits permanently as a military outpost to defend sovereignty. Beijing denied involvement. The Philippines is not losing this fight diplomatically. It has deepened military ties with the United States, signed a visiting forces agreement with France, and strengthened its legal standing internationally. But the confrontation is a daily drain on national focus, investor confidence, and access to the vast energy reserves sitting beneath those disputed waters, reserves that remain completely locked because one neighbor refuses to recognize international law. The Philippines did not choose this fight. It is simply refusing to lose it. And that costs something every single day. Now, we have arrived at number 1. You stayed. Good. Because this is the one that changes everything. Number 1. Malaysia. Not because it is falling apart. Because of what it is doing instead. And what that means for every Malaysian watching right now. While every other country on this list is drowning in crisis, Malaysia is moving in the exact opposite direction. And that contrast, that gap, is the most important thing any Malaysian needs to sit with after this video ends. In 2025, Malaysia's GDP grew at 5.2%. Inflation sat at just 1.4%. Unemployment is around 2.9%. Approved investments reached 427 billion ringgit in 2025 alone. Microsoft committed $2.2 billion to AI infrastructure in Kuala Lumpur and Johor. In both 2023 and 2024, Malaysia was the world's #1 destination for data center investment, 2 years running. The Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone is now operational. A trade agreement with the United States grants over 1,700 categories of Malaysian goods duty-free access. The country completed its first NVIDIA-powered sovereign AI data center in Johor in October 2025. Bank Negara Malaysia forecasts growth of 4 to 5% through 2026. While Bangladesh scrambled for emergency energy at double the price, Malaysia as an energy-producing nation held its position. While Pakistan closed schools and rationed fuel, Malaysia kept domestic energy stable. While Thailand sits at the bottom of ASEAN growth, Malaysia is near the very top of that table. Malaysia is number one on this list, not as a failure, as a responsibility. The countries at numbers 2 through 7 did not choose their crises. Sri Lanka was hit by mismanagement and global shocks it could not absorb. Bangladesh is geographically exposed to energy routes beyond its control. Pakistan carries structural burdens that go back decades. Myanmar is being consumed by a civil war with no clear ending. Thailand is watching its growth engine lose power with nothing obvious to restart it. The Philippines is legally defending territory it owns against a neighbor that does not accept the law. Malaysia, right now in 2026, holds something every single one of those countries would give almost anything to have. Stability, natural resources, strategic location, growing foreign investment, real economic momentum, and a government with the space to actually make bold decisions. The question is not whether Malaysia can succeed. That is already answered. The question is whether Malaysia will choose to. Every opportunity wasted is a choice. Every talented Malaysian who leaves because there is no path for them at home is a choice. Every investment delayed by politics or inefficiency while the window is open is a choice. In a moment when the rest of the region is fighting just to stay standing, choosing to walk slowly is not neutral. It is a decision with consequences that will be felt for a generation. Malaysia is number one on this list as a challenge, not a warning, not a condemnation, a challenge. Because the distance between where Malaysia stands today and where it could be in 10 years is not about luck. It is not about resources. It is not about global conditions. It is entirely a matter of choice. If this video changed the way you see Malaysia, share it right now. Not later. Right now. Send it to every Malaysian you know. Send it to someone who has been sleeping on what this country is actually sitting on. Send it to someone who left and needs a reminder of what they walked away from. Leave your answer in the comments below. What is the one thing you believe Malaysia must do right now to protect this moment? Be specific. Be honest. We read every single comment and we want to hear exactly what you think. And if you are watching this for the first time and you made it all the way here, you already know this channel is different. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because the next video in this series is going to go even deeper. And you do not want to be the last person in the room to know what is coming. This is Malaysia's moment. Do not let anyone waste it.